It is going. I just gotta wait for the fucking stream to pop up here so I can get the link.
For the stream, I've got to show you my team.
Alright. Alright, bam, that's closed.
Yo, I mocked Jay Ricky earlier.
Yeah.
And he hadn't played Kilo yet for his matchup against Uzi. And I brought Choice Specs, Terrablast, Flying Kilo, and it fucking swept his team. Like, in-game, it's crazy. Kilo's, like, kind of goated as a Terra captain. Even though it's kind of shit normally.
And link is sent out. We'll give it a little bit to let people get in. We'll go.
I'm gonna pull it up so I can listen to the chat. I need to mute it. Code it admin. Go to admin. There we go. I was reading the chat.
Oh, I thought it was Oscar for a second. I was gonna say fuck you, Oscar, but it's Hunter.
Yeah, this Hunter guy's cool.
My goat.
Like the Oscar guy. No, I'm joking. I don't even know Oscar enough to make that joke. I'm not an Oscar troll, okay?
I am. Okay, let me get this open. Oh wait, that's my chat isn't working. 1 second, let me get the right chat URL out. Bro, don't tell me to go to fucking homepage. I just put the link in.
Alright, F tier, please.
Bro. Okay. The chat's working on the stream.
Arth has haters, bro.
Is that Kane? It is. Makes sense. Alright. How long? 3 minutes? We'll wait like a minute more and then we'll get into it. Yeah. Yeah, dude, Oscar, we're actually gonna add a tier below F for Oscar. Alright, well, I think we're good to get started now. So, Sage, you want to talk about our 14th ranked team? We'll go from bottom up. I'll let you take it off. Unless Sage is dead. Oh, shit.
No shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, okay, bet. Yeah, get everything pulled back up. But yeah, I made a joke. I was like, our 14th team is Sin. But
I could not hear anything.
The reason we put Oscar in 14 for the most part was just a giant fairy weakness and fighting weakness, if I remember correctly. Not a ton of synergy there either. Some of the choices are a little weird, and some of the choices were forced, like Wo Chien. I don't think he drafts Wo Chien normally. So
no,
it
so
kind of makes sense.
Wo Chien was a forced draft pick. Everything else he did, he chose everything else.
Yeah. And then it's kind of, we got to put him as 14 for the memes because he drafted Terra Captain Dondozo.
Well, like when I was going through it, the things I noticed were, he had pretty bad speed tiers. He obviously had Chimpao up high, and his next highest was 101 Philandos. So you have a giant gap in there. You have
like 34 speed. So
you have
all the 120s are going to be running Modest or Admin against you, which is a big fucking deal.
All 120s are outspeeding you with Modest Adamant. You can only your Chimpao will outspeed like Ogrepons, the Lottie twins, all other 110 speed mons, the Protein trio. You're only gonna have Chimpao to control speed endgames. And as good as Chimpao is in this Uber season, Chimpao just is not enough to end up carrying you with that. Pretty bad Terra Captains and typings on them too. Dondozo's good, but fuck Dondozo, so we just ignored it.
You see, I have a little different opinion here. I don't like Lug, but I like Blim, so I think the Terra Captains are okay, because obviously Dozo's going to do something. But I do think the typing choices on the Terra Captains weren't the greatest, to say the least. Dragon on Dozo is pretty good. You know, it takes care of the water and it takes care of the electric and the grass weakness, but I don't really get fire. I think there's better typings out there. I mean, even just slapping Fairy as a default type is probably better than going fire. On Lug, I don't think the grass typing is the best there. Probably water. And then on Blim, I don't get the choice for fire much. I guess just to give like flamethrower stab, because I think it gets flamethrower. But I don't know. Not a big fan of it. Fairy's fine. Ghost is fine, and it's the better of the stab options unless you want to do Terra Blast flying. But I don't get the fire choice there at all.
Yeah, and then there's just obviously Wo Chen is a meme pick, but like Rotom Wash in the third round you can draft something. In my opinion, it's a pretty big reach. Rotom Wash isn't that great of a mon anymore. It lost Defog, which was a big hit to it, and it's not that good of a water type or an electric type that you really want, especially as a fourth round pick. I think you could have built better, but
for sure. And then I'm like the number one using bro. I'm Wings number one fan, as you know, but honestly, we overlook Galarian Weezing. It shouldn't be a 12-point mon. It should be probably like an 8 or 9-point mon. So taking it in the fourth round, you can draft a regular tier mon. That's also a bit of a reach in my opinion. And the fact that you have such a fairy weakness, you're going to draft a physically defensive poison type to check fairies doesn't make a ton of sense, because most fairies are going to be special attackers. So
yeah, and another thing is you basically force Goldango into the role of being the fairy stopping mon, and that's just not the role Goldango's gonna wanna have to take most matches. Goldango's gonna want to do so much more than what he's gonna be forced into that. It's hard to rank the team anything above 14. So it might seem like this is a targeted attack, but genuinely we figured out or we thought that was where Oscar should have gone. But I think
so then we can move to 13, and you can start us off on that one.
Yeah, well, now we'll head up to 14. So our 14 team is gonna be, let me find the logo here. We're gonna put it the Rain Train and Coach Rain. So this team, it was a little interesting, the rank, because they originally thought it was a VGC draft. They figured that out after they had drafted Murkrow. They have some good picks. You know, you got Magirna is a really good Uber. Arch is really good in Rain. Keldeo is good in Rain. Whimsicott is a decent mon. Glim's a good hazard stacking mon. Poly for Rain setting. Tox is a really good fair captain. Then Jirachi's really good mon, and Gardevoir is not bad. Iron Leaves is, I think it's pretty ass. Marco is not the greatest. But my real main problem with the team is it's a Rain team with no big Rain abusers. You have like Electroshock Arch and Keldeo getting boosted water moves, and then I guess Araquanid too, but like you don't have a Swift Swimmer. nothing like that. That's really gonna come in on rain, and it's gonna put out a bunch of damage, and there's nothing you can really do to stop it normally with like Bear Scuda or something. So I think dropping them on for Bear Scuda could be a really good move they could make. I would have rather they kept Volcanion instead of dropping it for Leaves in the Grace. But that's all I have to say for the team. And then you want to add on to it, Sage?
Yeah, the biggest thing with this team, in my opinion, and why I put it lower, is there's not really great there's not great swift swimmers. I think that you would put in the notes that it lacks good special offense, and then doesn't have the greatest Terra captains, because like you said, Tox is a great captain, but Murkrow and Whimsicott are both going to be pretty mid. Whimsy, I mean, it's going to have like the niche matchup or two during the season where it's going to go off, but in general, it's not coming or just not doing much if it does come. Toxtricity is going to be good, but you drafted Araquanid and it can Terra, if I remember correctly. In my personal opinion, you probably should have went Terra Araquanid and just overlooked Toxtricity and grabbed another Swift Swimmer. Like Ronan picked up Kingdra and Dreadnought super late. Could have sniped one of those. Could have grabbed Barraskewda. There were so many rain abusing options that just stayed on the board. I don't know if they decided to go with the rain team later on. That's why Polly wasn't drafted until whatever round it was. But I think like Terra Araquanid would have made more sense. And I mean, in general, you have the Argaludon to abuse rain. You have Keldeo, which doesn't really need rain, but it can make use of it. So it's not like, the teams were really good. It's not a bad team overall, but there are some flaws here, essentially.
Yeah, it's hard to like criticize a team without nitpicking some things when a lot of teams are really well built. Like those are a couple things. Another big thing I forgot to mention, the only removal is Glim on the team, and that gets walled by Steel typing. Every single team drafts Steel. It is one of the most needed typings in draft. So every team has something to stop your one form of Hazard removal, and Hazard is just so big, especially in this meta, that one form of removal just is not enough in my opinion. But that's all I have to say, and if you're good, we can move on to the next guy.
Yeah, so in 12th, we actually put Kane, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And Kane's team name is the Loader Loadsats, goated logo, by the way. And again, it's just being nitpicky at this point because all the teams are very good. This team ended up having good Terra captains, and I mean, a good Terra captain. I think Mouseholder is really good. I don't really love Rhydon much here, to be honest with you. And then the Uber is Rayquaza, which is obviously a good mon. But in general, there are some flaws that I saw with this team. I'm going to pull up the notes here. It looks like the main things that you had written, if I can find it, was that it was lacking a little offense. Didn't have the greatest Terra captains, which goes along with the Rhydon. Doesn't have great removal, and then both of his top two are rock weak, and it has a huge weakness to ice. It's like the main things. I think this team has like Tidy Up, Mousehold, so weak. You don't really want to go for Tidy Up in a lot of situations. You're probably just going to want to be Terra Normal, Pop Bomb, and do the damn out, knock them off, and then get Mousehold in the end game. And then you have Rapid Spin Hitmon top, which is, I mean, it's a Hitmon top without Terra. It's not going to do a ton in general. Again, it's not a bad team by any means. Just in general, compared to the other teams, I definitely see some weaknesses here.
Yeah, my main thing was its main offense is Rayquaza and Thundy. They're both rock weak and they're both ice weak, and then for ice's main switch is gonna be Heatran, or I think that's Heatran and Bisharp are the only two resists for ice. Heatran's a really good resist for ice, but it's gonna get overwhelmed, I think. But ultimately, it's got a good team.
Heatran has to do so fucking much for this team. That's one of the biggest things.
Rayquaza's
when you look at
super
the
scary.
Type chart of this team, Heatran's pushed into a lot of shit.
Yeah, Heatran's just gonna get overwhelmed, and like once you can get past Heatran, his only swap into ice if he brings it would be a Bisharp or a Terra Normal Rhydon. and that's just with Rayquaza and Thundy being your two of your only offensive mons. You can't be that weak dice. You have to have mons that can swap into their weaknesses. Ultimately, it's a really good team. I think 12 is a decent spot for it. There are definitely some changes they could make that would improve the team a lot. But that's all I have to say for them. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, I'm good on that. If you want to go to the next.
Okay, let me fix that. Okay. Our next team is Hearth. It took me a second to find the logo there, but we got it. Hearth's team. Hearth has a really good Sun team. You got some scary threats on their Sun. You know, you got Urshifu's single, which I'm a big fan of. Had it season 1. One of my favorite mons. Let me go down to the notes. The thing is, I don't like about the team. It's quite Sun dependent. It's got some decent Terra captains. Rapier's a really good one, but Bug isn't that as a pretty bad Terra choice on Rhyperior, in my opinion. It's got some good speed tiers. It's got good momentum. It doesn't have the most bulk ever. It's very EQ weak. It's very rock weak. And then also just doesn't like Fairy, Ice, or Flying as a typing. And when you have so many typings that a team is ultimately weak to, it's even if it's a good team. And you got Noivern and Torkoal for removal. And then you're also going to run into an issue. Very physical team. Urshi, Gouging, Moon, Ogerpon, Rhyperior, Sneasler, Slacking are all hitting physically. And then you have Noivern, Cram, and Torkoal as special threats. And if one of your special threats is a Cramorant, it's kind of hard to rank you any higher, even if your team's really good.
Yeah, I mean, even Noivern has base 97 special attack. It has big moves, but it's a Noivern.
There's only so far that can.
My biggest thing with this team, like you said, it's super Sun dependent. It doesn't really have a mode outside of Sun. Like, if this Torkoal dies, then holy shit, dude. You're Dragon Dance spamming and praying that you win the game, essentially. Unless you've done so much damage like Noivern or Sneasler can clean up. But, you know, that's just not going to happen every week, especially if people are building for what they know you're going to bring with this team. I mean, how often is Spite Elves coming or doing anything? How often is Slacking coming or doing anything? In general, I mean, Tink does stuff, but it's not a big threat. Like it's gonna T-wave, it's gonna knock off, it's gonna get rocks up. It's very defined what your offensive threats are here. Like what's gonna come, what's gonna break. You know going into prep for this team, which isn't always a bad thing. This team's crazy. Like if he pilots this team well, it's gonna do some work. I mean, it's going to be so hard to check Gouging Fire and then have enough left to also check Roaring Moon and then have enough left to also check Ogerpar on the Hearthflame and Urshifu single. So, like, this is a good team. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and then you have the late game cleaner of Sneasel. It's just super physically offensive. Like you said, the Terra captains, I'm not the biggest fan of. Rhyperior is a great captain, but like you said, the bug typing's not very good here. After, you know, it's easy to fall into the Heat Lord mindset that, like, it resists grass, it resists fucking fighting, it resists ground. That's so good, but in general, just slap Fairy on there. It's going to do more for you. You know, Spite Offs isn't great. Slacking isn't great. Cram isn't great. So it's just a lot of mons here that aren't going to do a ton, in my opinion. But in general, this team's a threat, dude. Like, if you sleep on prep against this team, you're going to lose. Like something's going to sweep you. But if you prep well versus this team, I feel like it's going to be very easy to bring some disruption, some phasing, and just win the battle, essentially. But overall, it's not a bad team. It definitely just has some flaws that could be fixed. I think it needs to pick up some special attackers and maybe get a mode outside of Sun. That way, if Torkoal goes down early, he's just not cooked in the battle. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we got all of it. I'm going to move on to the next team. So moving into our next tiering in the top 10, teams. Just breaking number 10, we have Hunter and his very annoying regen core.
Yeah, and I think, and I can start the discussion on this one because I think I'm a big reason this is ranked 10. You know, Hunter's a cool guy. I enjoy Hunter, and I do not think this is a bad team whatsoever. My biggest thing with this team is I don't think you need an Aloe as a Terra captain. Phalanx was drafted for a meme, but it as a Terra captain isn't very good, and Lug's okay. So I don't think this team has the best Terra captains. Aloe's just so non-offensive. I think your Terra captains have to have some offense at least. I'm just an Aloe hater, especially when you have a team where you have Ho-Ho and Galarian and Slowking as your regen core. You also have Hydra Apple. I think Hydra Apple is not very good without Terra, but if you have it, there's really no point to grab an Aloe and waste Terra points on it, essentially, in my opinion. And then I didn't get the Mandibuzz pickup. I think you said more likely not for removal, which I guess makes sense.
I was in call with him when he was doing it, and he had he originally drafted Enam, and I was talking about Enam, and he said he picked it for a fairy, but he was thinking about dropping it because it made him super rock weak with only one form of removal, with it being an Avalugg. And then he did change, and he had like Toxapex and Tatsugiri. But I was like, how often are you going to bring Rapid Spin Tatsugiri as a removal? So then he decided, that's a pretty good point. So he decided to drop Pex and Tatsu and then go for Mandibuzz that kept the weakness to rocks, but gave him another form of removal and some good bulk.
Yeah,
not the greatest
does
pickup,
make
but
sense.
it works.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. I mean, you need removal, but in general, I don't think Mandibuzz comes to a lot of matches. Your team's already so bulky. You have 2 ground immunities already. You already have a dark type, which is going to come to way more matches. So I don't think it was necessary. I probably would have looked for a trade, maybe looked for like lower tier removal that actually might be useful. I don't know. I mean, in general, I actually think this season he might bring Avalugg more than Mandibuzz because I don't know what Mandibuzz does for this team. I mean, it's defensive enough. There's nothing that you're going to need to use it for, really, in my opinion. But overall, it's a solid team. The regen core of Ho-Ho and Galarian and Slowking is going to go so crazy. You have Darkrai, you have Lando T, Iron Boulder is a threat. Like, Midrai and Boulder have been, they've been fighting the fraud allegations, but in general, you put them on the same team together. They're both fast, they both hit hard, and you put them on the team with a fucking Ho-Ho and a Galarian Slowking, like something, they're going to be doing something. I think this is a really solid team, so it's a good way to start off the top 10.
Yeah, my main harp on the team was pretty big speed tier gap. You got Darkrai and Boulder, and I think it drops down to Landorus at like 97. So all the like the 20s, 120s, or like early 120s, and like 110s and stuff, they're all speeding down the Lando, and they're all going to be like modest, adamant, or they're all going to be very bulky, with still being timid or modest, or timid or jolly.
Right.
Not the greatest removal as well. But then I also found it lacked a lot of offensive depth. So you got Darkrai, which is a good offensive mon. Ho has a good offensive stat, but it's gonna be built defensive. So like a good base stat can only take you so far because you get so much from EVs and natures. Lando's a good offensive mon, but it's also a really good defensive mon. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays through the season. And then you got Boulder's offense, and then you got Glowking, Hydra Apple, Aloe, Registeel, Avalugg, Mandibuzz are all like straight defensive, and then Phalanx. As much as I respect the meme pick, Phalanx isn't the best offense. I found it lacked some offensive depth and a pretty big speed tier gap, but it's definitely a good team to start off the top 10, like you were saying.
Yeah, man. If Hunter like embraces the offensive Ho-Ho, though, it can be a menace, man. I'm telling you, like Ho-Ho's by far the best Uber Loudness in my personal opinion. If he like makes minor changes and makes his team have more offensive depth, I think it's gonna be a real fucking issue, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're now time to move into number 9. Coming at 9th, we have the one and only Stefan and the Grand Lake Garchomps.
Which big shout out to him, by the way, for taking over a spot in the draft, mid-draft. What an absolute.
It was. So during the draft, when legit building came up, talk when Hunter found his shiny Ho-Oh, 2 people in the server didn't. They thought it was a showdown league. We had Hearth, and then Stefan took over Asylum, and Asylum just dropped. Big shout to Hearth though for sticking through. Bought Scarlet or Violet, whatever one he bought, and is playing through that play on cart. But so big shout outs to Hearth and Stefan, one for taking over a team mid draft after 2 picks, and then the other one for buying a game and going through, which is we never would expect you to do that, but we very much appreciate you for doing it. And getting into the breakdown for Stefan's team. So Stefan drafted Hisuian Guja down. Asylum picked Lugia Meow. Pretty good team though. He's got really good speed tiers, really good momentum. Lugia is a menace. He doesn't love rocks, but he has good enough removal. That's not that big of a deal. But he also doesn't really like ice, ground, or flying. And it's Dashman is really the main thing for me. So from this season to last season, we bumped up the Terra Captain points. The limit was from a 9-point Mon to 11, and then the amount you had for Terra Captains went from 15 to 18. And I don't think Stefan noticed that. Stefan was in season 1, so he had the old rules. He obviously noticed the Mon increase, but I'm not sure if he realized the points for them increase, because Dashman is not that good of a Mon. And then with Galvantula with webs, Galvantula's a really good web setter, but when you have Cinderace, and Cinderace will be your removal 99% of the time, you're not going to want to set webs and then court them over to your side. So you're kind of just shoots him into a hole that if he brings Galvantula, he can't bring Cinderace for removal. And then he's going to have to bring Donphan or Default Conk and then remove his own hazard. So Galvantula and Dashman are the 2 main reasons why I think he's 9th. I'll let you get into your thoughts now, Siege.
Yeah, no, I agree. In general, not a big Dashman fan. I think Galvantula is pretty good, and I think that Donphan is going to be a removal a lot of times, so maybe not the biggest deal in the world. But the big thing for me about the Gal pick is just I don't think this team needed a web mode really. I mean, you have the bulkiest Mon in the world in Lugia. You have Meow at the 123 speed or whatever it hits, 119 in Cinderace. You have the best Scarfer really ever. Like Gengar freaking loves Choice Scarf. So I think your speed control is perfectly fine prior to drafting webs, to be honest. Probably could have, instead of drafting Galv and Dashman, maybe drafted just a higher tier, better Mon, or drafted like a 7-pointer that can Terra, and then grab something else that just made a little more sense here. But I mean, in general, if he wants to be a Heat Lord, he can still bring our Choice Specs Thunder sets. So there's still potential for this to do something. And as far as his defensive core goes, in general, he's a little more on the Spadef side, but he still has Donphan for physical defense. Lugia can kind of be on both, even though it's usually Spadef. Hoodra is like the bulkiest Spadef Mon ever. Milotic can go either way. If you're running Marvelous Go, it can be physically bulky. So he's got a good defensive core. He's got good speed. Meowscarada, Cinderace, Scarf Gengar. Has good breakers. In general, it's a really solid team. That just shows you how tough this is that this team's number 9, because it's not a bad team by any means. And I'm a big PZ lover too. There's a lot of I think PZ's shit on for being one-dimensional, but I think there's a lot of depth to it if you use it the right way. So
yeah, but
you can bring a different PZ set
this try attack is, even if it is one-dimensional, name a Mon that isn't a ghost type that wants to swap into a Specs adaptability try attack. There's
nothing does.
Yeah. The best switch-in is probably assuming Guja, and guess what? He has the one and only Hisuian Guja on this team. So even if PZ is a one-dimensional, it's only ever even if he only ever brings Specs Tri-Attack this season, it's still going to be able to put up a lot of damage just because there's so few switch-ins to that strong of an attack.
Definitely. And I am good on Stefan in general. I think it's a solid squad, so good job, Stefan. You ready to move on to the next?
Alright, so coming after Safan, we have one of my favorite people in the league. So it hurts to rank him this low. Yeah, Josh, the people's champ as he is in the MML. You'll have to move over a little bit. Josh is a really good team, by the way. You got Kieran Black, and then Spectre, Terra Arcanine, which is one of the best captains we allowed. Azu, Serena, Crown, Gapdos, Tentacruel, Crook, Ditto, Sandaconda, and Raichu. So one of my big things with Josh's team, one really good Terra captains, Arcanine, one of the best we allowed. He also picked the best Terra types. I 100% would go Grass Normal. I would always suggest Grass Normal and Arc. Hit those water types with Terra Grass. And then Terra Normal East is just so strong. Kieran Black is a fantastic physical attacker. Spectre is a really good special attacker. But then, like, one of my big problems with it is it's a pretty big speed gap. I'm pretty sure it goes from Spectre down to Galarian Zapdos. Or down to Raichu. But Raichu is a pretty fake speed tier. So it is basically Spectre down to Zapdos. But other than that, he's got Serena and Tentacle, which are good removal mons. Ditto isn't the greatest mon in my opinion. But I'll let you get into your thoughts on Sage.
Yeah, my biggest problems with the team, like you said, the big drop off in the speed tiers. Another big thing is they're grouped up. A lot of the speed tiers are grouped up. Iron Crown's 98, Galarian Zapdos is 100, Tentacruel's 100. Just in general, speed tiers kind of grouped up, so they're not very diverse. That's fine though. They are spread out a little bit. Other than that, that's kind of nitpicky. My biggest issue is I think instead of grabbing Raichu, which I'm actually a Raichu lover, I think if you have 5 points remaining, it's a good mon to grab. The thing is, though, the only reason you had 5 points remaining is because you grabbed Ditto. I don't think Ditto is worth drafting here. You could drop Raichu, you can drop Ditto, and you get a 10-point mon. And you can even drop Tentacruel, because I don't think Tentacruel makes a lot of sense here, because you have Serena for removal, and you have a bulky, water type and a Azumarill that also has, like, the offensive side. I think Azdu's better than Tentacruel in general, even though Tentacruel is one of my favorite Draft League Pokemon. It's like my second favorite bulky water of the draft. I still objectively just have to say Azumarill is better. I think dropping Tentacruel, dropping Ditto, dropping Raichu, I mean, that gives you enough points to draft whatever you want. That's 19 points. That's the highest here on the board. Even if all the 19-pointers are gone, you can grab like a 16-point mon and grab like a 3-pointer to fill that hole. You can grab a regular Electrode instead of Raichu or whatever you have to do in that situation. But that's really, kind of nitpicky. That's kind of the only thing that I have to say about this team is I don't think that makes a ton of sense. But in general, it's a solid team. It really is. And again, that just shows the depth of the teams in this league, because this is not bad by any means. Arc's going to be a demon. Kieran Black's going to be a demon. Spec is something that arguably should be banned. It's not had a lot of success in this league yet, but maybe Josh is going to be the guy to do it.
Spec is to put it bluntly, the worst used mon in the league. Season 1, Taco got a big 2 kills with it, and then in Season 2, Brett got a even bigger 0 kills with it. So, you got Spectre repping out a big 2 kills in 2 seasons.
It's wild that got Spectre dropped to 18.
So,
bro.
I mean, Spectre's obviously a good mon, but hey, there's something about it is clearly bad that we're missing. But
Somebody's
we'll see.
Gonna pop off with this mon eventually. Like,
we'll see if Josh can go put use to it. Spectre is not a 18-point mon; it's a 19-point mon. It's just with after a season, I'll go through and I'll base some of the tiering off of the kill leaderboard. So like the top 5 or so mons will all move up 1 at least. And then the bottom few mons, or the bottom few offensive mons, so like Spectre not getting a bunch of kills. If Kieran Black's a bad example. If Galarian Zapdos doesn't get like any kills this season, he would drop down. So Spectre getting 2 kills in 2 seasons, and me basing the tier list, like the first changes off of that, it was hard for me to leave him in 19 this season. So obviously it's a fantastic mon. It can force a lot of prep. So we'll see how it goes at 18 this season. But
bro.
I don't have anything else to say about Spectre. If you're good, we can move on to number 7, I believe.
Yeah, and this one, I can start off. Number 7 is actually going to be Ronan. And in general, Ronan has a really solid team. It's just at this point, it's really just nitpicky shit. That's the big difference maker in these teams. I believe in your notes, the main things you said were it was kind of rocks weak and very weak to freeze dry, which a lot of rain teams are. So kind of nitpicky. Like I said, at this point, all the teams are very good. My main thing is I don't think Dreadnought's going to be what he thinks it's going to be, but I think Kingdra is going to be a fucking demon. Like, I'm terrified of. I play him week 1. I'm terrified of Kingdra. I think he wants to prove a point to me, so he's more likely than not going to bring Dreadnought over Kingdra. And I think Dreadnought can do something. I don't think it's a bad Pokemon. I had it last season after I took over Joe's team that was 0-5. I picked up Dreadnought, and I only played 2 matches because week 8, neither of us could make playoffs. It was kind of just pointless. I didn't manage to make Dreadnought work, but it was bad matchups for it. I think that if I had a whole season with it, I probably would have done something. But in general, I don't think it's a better shell smash mons than some of the others we banned by any means. I think that this team is solid though. Skyman this early on was kind of a reach, but I think he probably just did it because he likes the mon, which makes a lot of sense with the Ubers format. I mean, all of these mons are going to be good. Kind of just get what you like. So I respect the Skyman pick. It's very annoying to play. But it's a pretty cool design. I think Earthshoe Rapid's obviously a demon. You got it with Pelipper, so it's going to have the Surging Strikes boosted by Rain. Zapdos is a great Rain mon, and it's a good bulky defensive mon. It kind of goes both ways. Drill on a Rain team, he said that he's used it before. It's great. I haven't saw it, but I mean, it makes sense. You get removal, you get rocks. I'm the biggest Incineroar hater in the world in singles. I don't think it's very good, but it actually adds needed bulk here, I think, so it kind of made sense. Fez makes a lot of sense with this team. Laddie makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I think potentially the best Terra captains. I don't think Dreadnought's going to do what he thinks it's going to do, but I think Kingdra is going to be an absolute demon. It probably should have been allowed to Terra, but oversize happen in low tier Terra, so it's perfectly fine if it does go crazy this season. It's here for fun. That's the whole point of doing low tier Terra. That way, some of the lower tier mons that you usually wouldn't use pop off. So that's going to be a lot of fun in the Uber season to see something like Kingdra kind of just dominate if it ends up doing so. And I think Mismag kind of wrapped this team out well as well. The extra ground immunity along with Pelipper, Zapdos, Latias,
Shaman. Really needed.
Exactly. But Mismag is good with the squad. It really is. It's overall a really solid team. My biggest gripes with it is I think it is pretty rocks weak, like you had put in your notes, and then I think that Dreadnought might actually not end up doing a ton. But I think Kingdra's going to go crazy and probably compensate for that.
So one of the things I wrote in the notes is the second last thing I wrote was could be really good Terra captains, could be really bad. We haven't seen, obviously Dreadnought got used 2 games. It's been allowed season 1 and 2, hasn't done anything. Kingdra is a Terra captain that, like on a weather team, they can all do insane amount of damage. So interesting to see how he uses it. My biggest complaint about them is neither of them have Terra Grass or Terra Electric. So bulky waters is, especially on like Kingdra, it's gonna sit in front of its weather balls and it's gonna eat the hit. It is gonna take Kingdra's hits most of the day with Kingdra only having 95s attack. It got done so dirty. Dreadnought less so because it's 115.
You can drop a Draco on them, but like it's a bulky water and it's super Spadef, it's going to eat a Draco anyways. It's going to recover, and then you're going to be in a bad spot if you're Specs.
End of the day, if they force you to drop a Draco and they live, you're sitting at -2 after that. It puts you in a bad spot. But then like the rock speed weakness was one of the biggest things for me, and with Excadrill being the only removal mon. But ultimately, the biggest thing is picking Shame and Sky 4. I'm a Shame and Sky hater. One
It
of
was
the
like a
stupidest mods.
bottom, like
One of the worst
loud.
Ubers. I wanted to ban it just because of how like cancerous it is. But we allowed it. Picking it 4, I think, was a kind of a throw. I mean, he picked it because he liked it. And then respect him for putting his money where his mouth was, saying Dreadnought should have been terror banned. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, ultimately, good team, good battler. These are just off the teams, not off the battlers as well. So I'm good to move on to the next one if you are.
Yeah, for sure. And just one more thing I want to add. If it was based off like the battlers along with the teams, it'd be top 3 like easily. So
Well, Ronan in ML season, he took a Barraskewda outside of rain to I think like 16 kills or something. He got Hatterene like 12 kills. He does things with mons that you don't expect people to do. He finds value in mons that don't have value. He went round 1 Ogrepon Cornerstone because he thought it was underpriced and did really well. It's unreal. But yeah, we're not going off battlers. It'd be way too hard to rank.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to the 6th team. Really tough to put it this low, but we had to go with Stish. Really good team. Zama Pole is a crazy top 2, and then with Rillaboom. Prim's one of the best water types and one of the best fairy types. Azelf is a great mon. Moth is fantastic. Fortress is an okay spinner. Glacier is a really good Terra Cap. Torn is a really good Terra Cap. Swampert is a good mon. Morpico's pretty shit, and so is Morgan. My main complaint with this team is the removal. Stitch's removal is a Fortress and a Morpico. Morpico is straight ass, so you're gonna have to rely on Fortress, and Fortress is not the greatest spinner. It's got really good speed tiers. And another complaint I have is both of its captains are rock weak, so you're not gonna be able to bring boosting items on your captains most of the time. You're gonna have to be boots. At first, even if you would tear ground Glacier and you're no longer weak to rocks after that, that first time you swap in, taking 25% is so massive. And then following up with the Terra Caps on that, I'm not a huge fan of the typings. Glacier, Ice is obviously it's required. And then normal, I couldn't think of anything. Sage said it's probably for Facade, which would be a pretty sick thing to happen if he brings like a Flame Orb Terra normal Facade. Glacier would be pretty sick to see that happen. Ground, I assume, is for EQ. I would have liked to see something in there to like electric for bolt beam coverage, ghost so he can become immune to fighting moves or something like along those lines. Maybe Terra Water, just to help with weaknesses more. But Glacier, I think like 1 or 2 Terra changes could work. Torrent, I'm not too sure. We're not too sure on the poison and steel pickings. But ultimately, it's like a really good team in my opinion. It's just the Terra Captains being weak to rock and some of the typings made it put it down a little bit. With a little bit of improvements, it definitely could be one of the best in the league. And then you want to add on?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think in general, this team's insane. The low tiers just kind of make it struggle a little bit. Runs into going to do shots for set screen and drop a T-wave, whatever. Morpeko is ass. I don't think it's ever going to do anything, honestly. Like I don't know how good of a battler Stitch is because I wasn't around for last season. If he's good, like maybe like a or whatever that fuck it's called, maybe it doesn't. Morpeko's this. This team is insane though. Zama, Pole, top 2. You got Prim, you got Azelf, your mom, at the Tarek, the Swampert. He's a bulky bitch. Gets those rocks up reliably. My main issue, like you said, I don't think the removal's great here. I'm a big 40 hater in general. It's just too passive. I'm not a big fan of Morpeko. Don't think good share, and Torn probably would have been better type. Glass had at least for like a wall thing. Torn Steel's probably just defensive, and I'd assume that's what Poison is as well. But like the terror typings both being ground weak. If a mon with ground coverage that's strong against flying comes in, it's always clicking ground move because it knows you're tearing. I think that could be an issue in general. I would have liked to see, maybe just something generic like the fairy on Torn and like the bolt beam coverage on Glass, like you said, or just like the water ghost, something defensive. But in general, it's a very strong team, in my opinion. This team's great. The top, like 5-6 picks is going to carry the hell out of this team, and it's going to do great. As long as Stitch pilots it well, which I think it will. So.
All right. We're going to move on to number 5, if you want to take us to it.
Yeah. Let's see. So number 5 is actually going to be Mitch, a.k.a. Bulbastorm, a.k.a. the Oxys the dishwasher. So I don't have a New York accent. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Oxys the dishwasher. The thug name.
I'm Southern, man. I can't even attempt it. But this guy, Mitch is the GOAT, coming up from MML, trying to settle the score with me, Sin, and Taco.
Well, the way he joined was he kept telling me to unretire. I said, hey, I play in my league, and he was like, all right, I'll come play you there. That's basically what happened. So hey, I respect it.
Respectable, nah, yeah, he's gonna get his get back one way or another. Yeah, this guy, he's got DO attack. He's got the DD to stop Prio in the DO attack. He has treads, quag, great removal. Treads. Yo, could you not hear me again?
Do my thing. It went, and then I couldn't hear anything. So.
Oh, okay. But what I was saying about his team is he's got DO attack, he's got DD to stop and Prio, which is insane. DO attack's main issue is that Prio can stop it because its move pool is so deep, and it obviously hits so hard. It's got 180 base both. This team's gonna be a menace, dude. It's got treads, it's got quag, both's great removal. Quag's a late game sweeper. Treads is gonna get your hazards up. It can be bulky physically, can run AV sets. Raging Bolt's very strong, very bulky. Got the Prio with Raging Bolt. You have Ogre Pontier, which I'm assuming is mostly for the speed tier, but in general, picking that mono for 12 is never a bad thing. Forge is a fairy. Mag Mortar, I'm not sold on it as a Terra captain, but it's cool, so I respect it. Luna got dropped for Ting Lu, which is going to be very annoying with hazards. And Jolteon's a great Terra captain. So in general, this team's very strong. My main gripe, which is something me and you discussed, is that it has no ground switching besides for Ogre Pontil. And if you have like a Choice Banded ground type, you are going to 2-ko this mod or come close to it. So that's going to be an issue.
It will not swap in very well.
No, not at all. That's going to be an issue for Mitch this season. That's probably something he should look into, in my opinion. But in general, I think this team's very strong. The late game cleaning potential of freaking Terra like Bolt Beam, Jolteon, and Dio attack and Quag, it's just gonna go crazy. Like if you let Mitch's bulky mons like Raging Bolt and Iron Treads do damage early game, you're gonna lose to his Dio attack, his Quag, or his Jolteon essentially.
Yeah, one of my big things was obviously he was really ground weak. And then another thing I put in, it's an interesting thing to say, but I said he's lacking a little bit of offense, and he's going to rely on Dio a lot. So obviously Dio is fantastic offense. Treads he's got good offense, but it's mainly going to be a defensive piece. QQ's the same way. He can snowball, but he's mostly going to bring it defensively. Indeedee it's all right. Raging Bolt's really good, but again, it's another pretty defensive mon. It's good offensively, but it's also super bulky, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him lean a little bit defensively. Ogrepon's offensive, but like the worst offensive Ogrepon of the bunch, just because it lacks coverage, with not having a different coverage on Cudgel. Floor just defensive. McMortar, I think it can be both. I haven't really looked at stats too much, I'm going to be honest. Ursaluna / Tinglu is pretty defensive. Jolteon's
Matt can be
offensive.
both. It's got flame body. So.
Yeah, and then you got Quillfish. So you have like Dio Attack, Bolt, Ogerpon, Jolteon, Magmortar for offensive threats. And I think it's gonna end up relying on Dio a lot. EQ is super free. He's gonna be forced to bring Terragrass, Magmortar, or Ogerpon a lot to deal with that. Normally with Terra, the weaknesses like that aren't as big, but when you have Treads, Bolt, and Jolteon, Magmortar, and Quillfish all weak to it, you can't just overlook and say, okay, well, this one's gonna tear to it. It's different if it's like you have two weaknesses and a resistance, but one of your weaknesses is tearing into a resistance. It's like, okay, he's weak to this, but not really weak if he's gonna be tearing. But it's so weak to ground. Mitch realized that he's thinking of transactions to do now. He's got time.
Yeah.
So his team's gonna improve
a lot.
You
gotta get the ground immunity, man. Like the Ogerpon Till and then the Terra Magmortar for resist. That's cool, but you gotta get that immunity in there if possible.
Another thing is Mitch has not done a non-open Terra draft, so this is completely new to him. When the draft reveal got sent out, he messaged me, said, "How would you?" Any Uber that's absolutely busted that I should take a number 2. And I said top 5. In my opinion, go Ho-Oh, Dio Attack, Lugia, Lunala, or Quasha, somewhat in that order. I expected Ho-Oh to go 1. Ho-Oh was by far the best one we allowed. So when he picked Dio Attack, I said Dio Attack because I expected Ho-Oh to be gone. So Dio Attack is obviously fantastic, but he could have had Ho-Oh if I had have said like I given him like a straight list. I mean, ultimately he built a really good team. He's got, and then he asked me how he would build around it, and then I said Indeedee later pick to stop Prio, good removal to stop Hazard so you can have a Sash. Hazard settings always good to break other Sashes. And in the opinion that he got Treads and QQ for removal. He hit Indeedee, and then he's also got Treads for rocks, Ursaluna / Tinglu for rocks, Suing Quillfish for T-Spikes and Spikes. Ultimately, he built really well, and good on him for like building such a good team on his first non-Open Terra draft. It can be a little different when you've played Open Terra for a long time. I'm excited to see how he does.
This is a great team, considering.
Yeah. I'm ready to move on to the next one. You good to go?
So the next one is actually the GOAT, the commissioner, the owner of the draft league.
Fucking shitter. Hasn't completed the season yet. He's the owner. He has not completed the season.
Well, I completed season 2 because I took over team. I think I can touch on my team very briefly. I'll let you do the in-depth analysis because I'm not a narcissist. The main things of my team is I kind of just picked what I liked. Grin's one of my favorite mons. Ursaluna's one of my favorite mons. I love Iron Hands. I love fucking Entei, Tauros. Like I really just drafted the team I liked, and I feel like it went pretty well. Like my biggest weakness that I see is the ground typing, but I have double immunity, so I should be fine. I doubled up on like a few typings because I got so many multi-type Pokemon in my first like 5 or 6 picks. I kind of had to, but I don't think any of the doubling up hurt me. Like I have, the double ground type, the double water types. One of my ground types is offensive, one of my water types is offensive, and the other one is Gastro, which is obviously going to be defensive every single week. Doubled up on normal types, both offensive, one's physical, one's special. I think in general, my speed tier is pretty good, and I covered the types pretty well as well. I think I could have had a better draft if I drafted like a 18, 19 pointer and pick one over Blood Moon, but I really just wanted to have a good time, essentially.
I mean, it's a good team, and the only person we saw who changed Ubers originally, he picked Zekrom. He was saying before the draft he wanted Zekrom. And then once the draft ended, or not when it ended, when Oscar was up, or it was Ducky, and I was talking to Oscar about his pick, and I was like going back and forth, and I was talking to Sage, and I was talking to Oscar, and I was talking about how Lunala is really good, and Sage said, it's like I kind of want to use Lunala this season. So then I was like, hey, you could see if Oscar wants to trade with you. And then Oscar didn't pick it. But then we were all like, I mean, no one else can draft an Uber. So if you're dropping, you can do it now. So he hit a mid-draft Uber change. So before Ducky had even picked a Great Tusk, he already swapped his Uber. He went from Zekrom to a Lunala, a lickety split. But I mean, like he built a pretty good team. Luna BM is a fantastic special attacker. Gren is obviously a really good mon with Protein or Battle Bond, two fantastic abilities. Hands is bulky as shit. Core is bulky as shit. Mesprit's really good with Levitate, Electric, no weaknesses. It's pretty bulky too. Entei, it's pretty bulky and can inherit. Tauros, Shocker, it can be pretty bulky or can inherit. Gastrodon, bulk. Clef, bulk, and then Skunk Tank is mascot mon. You know, you got skunks from tanks. Ultimately, it's a really good drafted team. Some good Terra captains. Looking at the notes that I wrote down here, I said Bulk City. Only one form of removal, which isn't the greatest thing, in my opinion. Good Terra captains, like I said. He's got pretty good momentum. Gren's got U-turn. Hands has Volt Switch. Corv has U-turn. Which, I mean, that's three of your best mons all having momentum, which is really the bare minimum I'd consider pretty good, like, good momentum. And then, like you were saying, it's somewhat weak to ground, but he's got enough to cover for that weakness that's not really too big of a weakness. But, I mean, I think we've hit everything. We're good to move on to the next team here.
The only thing I want to mention is that in terms of momentum, I'm so happy to have Teleport back. Like, I feel like I'm playing Gen 8, because Lunala is, like, one of the only mons in this gen that gets Teleport, which is
true.
so lit.
Forgot about that. Now, moving from one of the talkers to another one of the talkers here. We have my team. I'm gonna like not say anything at the start, and I'll let Sage talk about the start, and then I'll come in afterwards and give my thoughts.
Yeah, sounds good. So in general, this team is very bulky. The regen core, you know, it's got Torn, it's got Psych, it's got Slowking. Torn and Slowking are really the big regen core, in my opinion. Psych as a Terra captain is going to be more of like a utility and offensive mon, I would assume. It's kind of got some offense behind it, man. Like with the right set.
Hey, don't forget about Cloth. Regen Terra Captain Cloth, the GOAT.
Oh yeah, Cloth will do something for sure. No, but like Kieran White in the Palafin's fucking crazy. What is it? 170 special attack and the 160 attack. Then you have Petrarunt, which is like the best physical wall in the game. You got your regen core. You have Orthworm as your steel type with Terra. Orthworm's not a bad Terra captain at all, because it's like impossible to kill this thing. With Terra Electric, it has no weaknesses and it has 140 defense. You know, like Iron Press sets and stuff with that, it's gonna go crazy. You have a Lecky, which I'm not a fan of, but you know, if anyone can make it work, I think Sin can. Speed Boost Blaze isn't as crazy as you would think it would be. I know a lot of people are probably new to Speed Boost Blaze being allowed. I played in a couple leagues with it. It's not amazing, but it's still a very strong mon. You know, Speed Boost Blaze is an absolute menace in the right hands. Like if Speed uses this thing well, it's going to clean up games just for free some weeks. Sylve is great. In general, I didn't write any notes, but to me, the biggest weaknesses of this team is just like Cloth and Alecki, in my opinion. I think Orthworm and Psych are great. Cloth's the mascot pick, though. Can't shit on it too much. I'm not a big Alecki fan, but it has fast screens. It's got removal. It can volt switch around. If you take out the opposing team's ground type, sometimes Alecki just wins, too. I mean, maybe there's a week where the opponent has a shitty ground and you just want to take it out and fucking win with the Lecky, and that's fair. In general, I do think it's super solid, though.
Yeah, so my thoughts in the draft on it were, my original plan was Magearna. Because Magearna isn't among one of the top mons allowed. So I was thinking I'll be able to get Magearna pretty much no matter what. Obviously, like if I'm super late, I probably won't. But I was thinking, like, if I'm lucky enough to get early to mid, I'll be able to get a Magearna. Because, you know, I have, like, Deoxys will go, the Curums, Lugia, Ho-Oh, Zekrom, Lunala, Rayquaza. even Palkia Origin, things like that. So I'm hoping I'll be able to get Magearna late. Magearna ended up being the first pick. So I didn't end up getting it. It came down to me, and I was debating between Lugia and Kyurem White. Lugia got picked right before me, so I went Kyurem White. And then I had a pick of Oscars that I could force him to pick any mon, round 5 or after, no matter what, whenever I wanted. And then I was like, hey, you pick Palafin and trade it to me, I will not use my pick. So he picked Palafin and he traded to me. So I have one of the best special attackers and one of the best physical attackers, which is sick. And then
ways, so that just worked out for both of you.
Yeah. Petron is just like an insane physical wall. And after using Claude last season and being able to see okay, this mon can hit me super effectively, but I still completely eat its hits. I was like, I gotta give Petron a go because it's a physical Clodsire basically. And then Torrentee, when it swung around, Torrentee is one of my most used and favorite draft mons. Orth and Psyche have been 2 Terra Captains I've been wanting to use for a long time. And then it ended up working out that with Cloth and those 2 I could tear all of them. I said it 2 weeks before the draft of Taco, I wanted those 2 as my captains. And then Aleki mostly was because I think Aleki's a good mon. But also Sage was saying it was shit, so I was like, I'm taking Aleki to prove you wrong. Slowking, I need a special wall. After Aleki, I was looking. I was like, okay, I have Petron and Orthworm that completely shut down physical attackers, basically. But I have AV Torrent as my only answer for special attackers, so I have to go for more especially bulky mon. After Slowking came, and then after that, I was looking. And then I was like, I'm not the greatest against dark types. And I was looking at some fighting types I could grab. I didn't even grab Blaziken because it's speed boost. I grabbed it because it's a dark resist that isn't weak to fairy. And then the second last round, I didn't have a mon I wanted in 12 points. And then I saw Sylve. And I didn't know if Sage was taking it or not because he was debating it. So I was waiting. He said he wasn't, so I took Sylve. Ended off with Cloth. There's not too much else for me to add. Anything you want to add before we move on to number 2?
No, not at all. I think the Blaziken, I didn't really look too in depth, but looking at it now, I think Blaziken's gonna fucking clean these in game. For prep, it says and get absolutely cooked. So that's gonna be fun. But I am ready to go to the next one.
Now, number 2. We got a 50-50 chance if you guess at it. We have the 3rd admin in a row, Taco. So for these rankings, all 3 of us did them, and then we gave each tier a point value, added all them up. You wanted the least amount of points, and then ties we took it to the form. We went whoever had the most of the highest ranked votes. And it ended up being this how it ended up playing out. If you believe it, it's not biased. If you don't, I guess you could say it's rigged. But Taco's got a crazy team with Palkia Origin, Iron Val, Terrapagos, Dio Speed, Scizor, Suing Arcanine, Darren Sidgewai, Sandy Shocks, Weezing, and Terra Umbreon and Thwackey. Dio Speed is obviously I don't know how it lasted a 4th round. It's one of the best mons in the format. Valiant is again one of the best mons allowed. Palkia Origin is insane offensive threat, 120 speed, 150 attack with really good bulk. Terrapagos is really bulky. Scizor, I had it last season. Amazing mon. Suing Arcanine hits super hard with Banded, Rockhead, Head Smasher, Flare Blitz. Scizor's a pretty good Terra Captain. I would have wished you went maybe Terra Grass on it to help take out those bulky water types that Palkia can't really hit. Sandy Shocks is a pretty bad electric type in my opinion. I would have rather you went for a different one. Weezing is a decent mon. I'm kind of a Weezing hater. Sage and Taco love it. Terra Umbreon's really good. I had it a little bit in season 1. only brought it once, I think, but it's a pretty good mon. And then Thwacky's okay. Not too much to say with Thwacky. My notes for Taco's team, I shall find it real quick. So Taco's got really good speed tiers. He's not a huge fan of Fairy, what was a big thing I noticed. He's got good hazard setting, but his only removal is Defog. So that's kind of goes against itself. He's got good bulk, he's got pretty good Terra Caps, and he's got pretty good momentum. I'm a momentum lover. And he's got some decent momentum there. But that's all I have to say about it. If you want to add anything else there, Sage.
Yeah, my big thing with this team, I'm a huge fan of it just because I think DOSV is like going to be the dedicated lead most weeks. It's going to be what people expect. You can throw in a Sandy Shocks, you can throw in a Hisuian Arc to just blow stuff up. I think that's going to do a lot for this team. Palkia Origin, just cleaning up in games because it's not going to get OHKO'd by anything, and it's going to OHKO anything it hits. It's going to be kind of nasty. Val's obviously one of the best mons in the format. DOSV's one of the best mons in the format. Terapagos is like, it's got the Dragon ass multi-skill ability, and it has so many different options. It can be Calm Mind, it can be like a utility Rapid Spin set, it can be Meteor Beam Power Herb. It has Brock Polish to clean in games. This mon can do so much. I saw a lot of people have this mon on Fraud Alert, but I honestly just don't agree. I think it can do so many different things. I'm actually a big fan of it. I think Sizz is like the best fairy killer in the game, and with this team, it made a ton of sense. The only other mon you have to, hit fairies is Weezing, and it's not gonna, really deal with a lot of fairies very well, since it's super physically bulky. Shit like Sylve can psychic it, etc. All fairies get psychic coverage for the most part. So I think having Sizz as a fairy killer here made a lot of sense with Val and Palkia being your top two. Love that pick. Hisuian Arcanine is an absolute menace to society. It's just very strong. The Sidui, it's just a typing or something. It does not have the craziest bulky stats, but this mon eats hits, bro. It eats hits for breakfast. It gives him priority along with Scizor. He's got Sandy Shocks for momentum. It gives you secondary options for all your hazards. It also can just kind of be an offensive threat because what is it, like one base 121, 122 special attack, 101 speed? That's not bad whatsoever. Weezing's like one of the best physical walls in the game because pure poisoning's not a bad typing defensively. It checks fairies. It checks, for the most part, of course, checks fightings. You have Umbreon, which is a great Terra Captain because Terra Poison Umbreon checks so much. Terra Ghost Umbreon checks so much. A lot of times you can just bring like Weezing and Umbreon and deal with any mon on the other team because Umbreon can wish past the Weezing and be Spadef. And then you have Thwacky to just add on some more prio. Gives him the grassy terrain for weeks he doesn't bring Weezing and doesn't have that immunity to help him out. It helps out a lot with Scizor being neutral to ground, Hisuian Arc being 4 times weak, Sandy Shocks being weak. Grassy terrain is loved by this team in my opinion, especially if it's like a poison Umbreon week or like a neutralizing gas Weezing week. So in general, I think it's a really strong team, and I'm really excited to see someone use DO speed in this league. It's the first time we've allowed it, so I'm super hyped for that.
Yeah. I think we're good to move on to number 1 team. If you can't guess by looking at it, it is Mitch's old logo. It's we got Ducky. This team is absolutely disgusting. Fluttermane, Tusk, Chiyu, Wake, Ninetales, Scar, Terra, Hisuian Type, Deoxys defense, Slitherwing, Terra Kamal, Terra Brute Bonnet is a pretty scary team. Chiyu on a Sun team should not be allowed. Honestly, I think we should have banned him for that. But it's like Flutter's an absolute monster. Tusk is the best spinner in the game. Chiyu is probably the best special attacker in the game. Walking Wake is ridiculous in Sun. You got Ninetales for Sun setting. Scarm is it's a pretty good mon. If it got Defog, it'd be a lot better. Steven Typh, I mean, all I gotta say is I showed it last season. It's Terrifier, Eruption's a menace, and then put that under Sun. DOD is disgusting. Slitherwing's really good. Terra Kamala's And their Bond, I think, could be pretty good. We'll see how he uses it. My things for his are fantastic Sun team. And then next thing was, it's Rock Week, but I mean, it's a Sun team. You're going to have Rock Week. You're going to have Chi-Yu, you have Ninetales, you have Typh, but then you have like Slitherwing's going to be taking a good chunk, and Slitherwing comes in quite a bit for first impression and U-turning. Skyrim's going to be taking a bit. Wake is going to be taking chip. Flutter's going to be taking a bunch of chip, and like it's a pretty pivoting team, especially with Sun. You want to be getting Ninetales in, and then get your Flutter, get your Wake, get your Chi-Yu in. It's got the best spinner though. I would have rathered another form removal. It's you only have one real form removal on the counter Kamala. It is the best spinner, but I would have rather like another mon like a Defogger that you could rely on matches where you can't. Like Tusk is a really bad matchup and you can't bring it, or if you just can't get Tusk in. It's really a team, and it's like at this point it's just like it's nitpicking things. So anything you want to add onto the stage?
No, I mean this team goes crazy, dude. One of the best Sun teams I've ever saw. I think getting Flutter main is just insane. Having Tusk, Chi-Yu, Wake, Hisui, and Typh as the Terra captain for those fucking Terra fire moves and Sun is gonna be ridiculous. And then you have Slitherwing to come in, get the attack boost, and click first impression. Like you could be Bandit Slitherwing in Sun and also get the proto boost, which is just insane. This is gonna be a million. Brute is great Terra captain in Sun as well. So Typh, Brubon, and Kamala probably arguably the best Terra captains in general. It's probably between him and Ronan, depending on how much he pops off with Kingdra. Off the top of my head, I'm not looking at all the teams, obviously. The weather teams with the Terra captains, they are usually just kind of overbearing at points. But I think Typh's going to go crazy. I think Bonnet's going to go crazy. I think Kamala is very underrated with Terra allowed. Maybe we should have bumped it up from 2 points. I mean, I don't think it's like game breaking or anything, but it has some really good sets. I actually think he's going to be able to make Kamala work more than 1 week this season, and I think it's going to put in some work, man. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game where it gets 2 or 3 kills with like a bulk up set or something, because it's like deceptively, especially bulky, and it hits pretty damn hard. So it's not an awful mon. He has DOD, Scarm, so he's got the defense going on top of all these offensive mons too. So just a great team overall. Like you said, Rock Week, but some team just your spam boots anyways. Hazards and great Tusk for weeks is running utility, and then you have Skarmory as a second rocker. It also gets spikes. You have Depryo with Brubon and Slitherwing, so it's just a great team overall, in my opinion, and definitely deserve number 1.
It's a fantastic team. I don't think there's ever a debate between what team was gonna end up being number 1. But here you go. Here's the final rankings for this season.
I actually have one thing to say about Ducky before I forget, because I just thought of it. I think Kamala not being a ghost hair is a little weird. I think Typh should have had grass over electric 100%. But other than that, super solid team.
Yeah, it's a scary team. Typh, I found last season. I also went with fire, ghosts, and then I went with grass. There was 1 week I was grass, and then every other week I was fire. There's not really gonna be a week where you're gonna end up going Terra Ghost Shatter Ball, because like looking at the calcs, I think it was against Ronan. I was looking at Terra Ghost Spax Shadow Ball into a Raging Bolt, and then I looked at a Terra Fire Eruption specs into a Raging Bolt with max HP, and it was like the same exact calc. So unless you're going up against a rain team where you can't click Eruption at all, or it's like a bunch of Flash Fire Mons or whatever it is, unless it's like a super, super bad matchup, you're gonna end up being Terra Fire Eruption, just because of how much damage it ends up doing. But I mean,
I think sometimes the Terrifier Eruption just doesn't work because of not being able to remove the hazards reliably or something. But with Tusk, if he plays right, he really shouldn't have to worry about that in general. So I agree that Terrifier Eruption can come a lot, and even weeks he's not Terrifier Eruption. If Sun's up, Terrifier Fire Blast or Overheat's just going to nuke something versus the only real he spammed toxic spikes into no grounded poison and ran like a
Hex, yeah.
Hive signature move, which is like stronger Hex, but he doesn't even have T spikes, so that probably doesn't even happen.
Hey, bro, Terra, Poison Bond, and Spike. T spikes. But
no, I
it's
mean,
a good team.
it could be like a Will-O-Wisp spam or Wave Spam Week something, and then he brings like the signature move Terra Ghost, but in general, he's probably gonna be fire regardless.
Yeah. So that's our ranking. You know, you got Ducky at 1, and then you have Taco, me, Sage, and Mitch with 2 to 5. Stish, Ronan, Josh, Stefan, Hunter for 6 to 10, and then Hearth, Kane, Rain, and Oscar for 11 to 14. All the teams in this league are good teams, though. It's when with one Uber, it's kind of hard to make a bad team. You realistically just go, I got this Uber, I'm gonna build around the Uber, and you have a good team. Even if you didn't build around it the best, it's a good team, and they're gonna be all scary to play. There's no free win, really matchup wise. There can be like obviously there'll be more advantageous matchups, but like with an Uber, there's not just gonna be a free win. Like it's
even with
so
Oscar's
tough.
at the bottom, but there's weeks where that Chien Pal is just gonna fuck your life up.
It's gonna be scary.
So we have a Woj bomb here too. Hunter dropped his entire team.
Yeah. So let's take a peek at that I'm gonna try to get this working here.
I think it's solid too. Honestly, I really like the changes Hunter made here.
Right.
So good on him.
I think this is showing.
Yup.
All right. So we bring this up here. We go down to the transactions down here, and we see the big transaction. He dropped Hydra Apple, Mandibuzz, Avlug, Registeel, Aloe, and Lando. The 4 mons we talked about were bad on his team. He dropped, and he picked up Garchomp, Blastoise, Espeon with Terra, Sableye with Terra, Thundurus, Incarnate, and Klefki.
Chomp adds a whole new mode to that team. Like, you know, you had the rock issue with Ho-Ho, switching your Garchomp and fucking click a button, dude. And then Espeon's one of the best mons that we allowed to Terra, in my opinion. It's very good with Terra. Espeon's very, very good.
Very good. Super strong.
So, great transactions. Blastoise is my favorite mod of all time. Great utility. Sableye actually does stuff. In my, like, I'm not even lying to you when I say that I saw Sableye go crazy at times. So, super solid in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really good transaction.
Yeah, that would have bumped him up for sure. I don't really know off the top of my head, but I think that would have kicked this team up at least to like 6, 7, 8, something.
At least it was. It's a really good transaction there. But yeah, so that's our ranking for season 3. EBA, the 1 Uber per team. Now, if you got ranked low, don't take offense to it. Use it as motivation.
Exactly.
And
if you're at the bottom of these rankings, you just need to win the league, and then you're gonna fucking shit on everyone.
Hey, Ronan,
you have full permission to make fun of all of us.
All you gotta do, you sweep Sage week 1 with your Dreadnought, and that's enough said. It's that simple.
Listen. Ronan's probably gonna beat me. I think Ronan's better than me at Pokemon, but I'm not losing the fucking Dreadnought. Okay, I will make that statement live on YouTube right now. If I lose, it will not be the Dreadnought.
Alright, like, now you gotta put something on the line. If you get swept by Dreadnought, Ronan gets to like drop Lunala and pick your Uber, something like that.
No, I'm not doing that because I'm shouting out Lunala. There's no way.
You gotta put something on the line. He can drop a mon of yours. He can pick Terra Captain, say something.
All right. If Ronan sweeps me with Dreadnought next season, he can make one of my picks.
All right. That's a good. I think that's a good deal. That's forever documented on this channel. So yeah, that's gonna be it for us today, though. There's the rankings. I'll be posting it in announcements, so you can always go back to it. But that's gonna be for me, and we will see you all week 1 when I play Taco, and Sage will be seeing you week 1 when he plays Ronan.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace, guys.